Hi, my name is Dakota Pariset. I am the artistic director of the Lightbulb Factory, and we're about to do an interview. You can see these three other boxes. Three of our four directors are joining us for a little directors, not circle, but kind of roundtable circle conversation. And we're going to be talking a little bit about our experience here as we're getting deeper and deeper into what we are producing at the end of March, the Lightbulb Factory's The Process. So I'm going to let the directors go ahead and take a moment to introduce themselves. But real quick, The Process is going to be our first live in-person show of 2023. That's running March 24th through the 25th at Mrs. Murphy and Sons in North Center. We hope that you can join us. It's a very fun experimental rehearsal process culminating in an interesting look at the audition and casting process. But some of us know all too well, and I'm sure we'll get into it here in this conversation. But we're super excited to share with folks who also aren't as familiar with what kind of goes into, making it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and introduce our directors here. I'll give us a template here. I already kind of did at the beginning of the video, but my name is Dakota Pariset, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the founding artistic director of the Lightbulb Factory and also one of the producing associates for this production. And I've been in Chicago about 6.5 years, and it's been great. Cool. Eliza, take it away.
Hey, I'm Eliza. My pronouns are all of the above, and I've been here in Chicago for like 2 years.
I'm Kamille Dawkins. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. I've been in Chicago for, I always forget, but probably over 8 years, that's for sure.
Hi, I'm Rashaad A. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I've been in Chicago for going on 4 years now.
Well, welcome all. So diving right in, Chicago and just theater in general is in kind of a really interesting place, right? Given we're 3 years removed from when this horrible nightmare started. And things are really starting to open up a little bit more as we get further and further from that initial seismic shockwave. What have you all been up to between now and then? If there's like a specific project you have coming up or something that you just completed.
Mostly with the seismic shockwave, as we call it. I've been working on my writing, letting that be more of a focus point. Other than that, I've been in a couple projects here and there and doing some directing whenever the opportunity arises.
And for me, I became the artistic director at Straw Dog right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I've been learning how to keep producing during that time. So it's been a lot of fun virtual work and great time to just work on little personal artistic projects, just keeping busy.
And I'm a freelancer as well as an ensemble member. So I've been directing when people need a director for a play festival, and I've actually acted in a couple projects here and there recently. So I'm just trying to stay, as soon as things open back up, I tried to get back to being busy.
Yeah, I love that. I love the hustle. And I think that just, again, speaks to Chicago theater, right? We're all multi-hyphens, which is beautiful. We're never short of work. With that, so the Lightbulb Factory, again, also, Kamille, speaking to your point, started January 2020. That's when I was sort of the unofficial artistic director at that point. It was just me, but producing right before something like that happens and then having to like pivot is a journey. With that, we've kind of been continuing to explore different ways of producing and making things. With the process being kind of experimental in getting to the content that we're making and how we're going about making it, what gravitated each of you to jumping on board to directing Act One with the audition monologues, and then Act Three, the final performance, if you will.
I love experimental. That's so much fun. So the moment I heard that we were going to have multiple directors directing multiple things all together, I was like, oh, that's going to be real interesting. How could I not want to be a part of that? You know? And it was about the acting process and what that's like, and putting that on stage for people so that story gets told. I thought that was really neat. So
yeah, it's same here. Like, I was really intrigued by this idea because it sounds experimental, and it's exploring, you know, how the thing gets made, and you're seeing it happen raw. And I don't know, it sounds really cool. And working with different directors, getting their different perspectives on the same scenes and things like that. It's just, it seems like a challenge. And as you said, you know, we're all multi-hyphenated, and I think multi-hyphenated people are usually like, let's mess around. Let's throw some genres together. Let's just do some crazy stuff. So this is exciting.
And I happen to write it or help write it. So that's why I'm here.
But yeah, I realized I should have mentioned how the show is structured. So for the Lightbulb Factories, the process, what we actually did when we were doing the initial planning for the season, I pitched an idea, and then it was like, maybe not that one, but I had a backup idea, and that idea was kind of dipping back into the original cycle of the Lightbulb Factory, where I did covers of monologues that I had in my brain that we weren't able to use for auditions because the pandemic had just begun. So we started to like roll those out, and then it kind of it snowballed into bringing in folks that I knew directed, and I wanted to get kind of that other eye on the work to see what we could do to stretch it and kind of get some new air in it. And so with that idea, we actually all started to build the story from there as an ensemble, which was really fun to experience, because we took the initial bit and it was like, well, we have a 20-minute show. No one's going to pay $10, $15 for it. They might, but for a 20-minute show. So how can we build on this? And then Rashaad, I think, brought up a cool idea about bringing in the callback portion. And it was like, well, then how do we bring in that material? And then with this whole idea of cycling and recycling, we decided we were going to bring in material from shows, recycling material that we had produced in our 2020 season or our 2022 season. And then, so we took 4 sides from 4 short plays out of, I think, the 11 or so that we produced last year. And then after that, it was like, well, where do you go? What does that all lead to? And we found a couple of plays that are very meta connected to this process, where it's people getting auditioning to get cast in a show. And that is what the show is. And so we get to build each night to a different cast performing each of those plays. With that in mind, and all of us being multi-hyphenates, what have you noticed, or what have you noticed as both actors, directors, from the audition process on both sides, both involved with this project and just outside of the Lightbulb Factory?
I think one of my favorite things I've realized is how much the table wants you to succeed. Like, in every audition, they want to see you do great. And that's always been really nice ever since I realized that. I'd be like, oh, yeah, I can walk in on this. This is good energy. Yeah. And I think bringing that in is nice, and reminding people, having that experience. If you can experience being on the other side of the table, I think it's really helpful for any performer to know what it's like to look for a performer and what it is that you need.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'd also add that I think specifically, I guess because of the pandemic too, auditions have just been like a lot of fun now, because everyone's just so excited to see each other. So it's amazing how I know before it used to be a lot more tense, but I feel like once everyone gets their first audition out of the way, it just turns into like this warm reunion. Like, everyone's just happy to be back and doing theater. And I feel like that was kind of the way it went for this. Like I've already had one of my rehearsals with the actors, and we watched people on tape, but then you get to actually be in the room with them, and it's like, it's just a joy to meet people and get to see what everyone's experience is and how it can influence what you're working on.
Yeah, I think both of those things are like very accurate. Like I was working as a casting director, like right as theater started going back into auditioning, and then just like seeing people be like, "Oh my God, you're still here," was a lot of like just the amount of joy of like people being like, "Oh, you didn't move like to like LA or New York, or you didn't move back home with your family. You were still working together." There was a lot of excitement there. And I think as someone who has spent most of my time on the other side of the table, but have auditioned, I always like seeing like people when they feel like they've nailed it. Like, because there's a swagger when someone like walks out of the room and they're just like, I got it. And it's like, I wish everyone, regardless of how you felt about your particular audition, just walk out. Like sometimes I've cast people who just had the confidence to walk into the room, regardless of how they felt about their monologue, and like, fuck it, I'm gonna own this shit. And then they'll leave. And I was like, well, I need that energy in my space somehow. So like, it's always fun watching people do something like they feel confident doing. And I think I love that part of like the auditioning process for me.
Yeah, and it's so nice that like we can experience that again in person, because there is I think an accessibility created by using Zoom and having Zoom as an outlet to do like those online auditions, but it's not the same. There's just something about in the room, like you're talking about, Rashaad. With that, is there anything that you've noticed about your craft, either being involved in this process or as we're coming back into live shows, having been kind of sidelined as an industry for the past 3 years, as directors or as actors?
I won't lie, I felt a little rusty. Like I came back and I was like, I'm not totally like where I was. And so there's a challenge for me to get back to where I was, to make sure that I'm not, giving anything less than my best for the performance, for the performers, for everybody. And I just think that that's one of those things that I've had to realize in this process is like, oh yeah, let's get back on the ball. Let's get that rolling. Let's keep it up.
Yeah, I think on the acting side, I definitely was rusty, because when I went in for my first audition, I was like, my hands are shaking. What's going on here? But yeah, then, got more comfortable with it. But on the directing side of things, I think I've just been thirsty for it. Like, so really excited to be jumping back into it. Like, I feel like every time I go and I see something somewhere else, I'm always sitting down, analyzing, thinking about, oh, what would I do here? And what would be a way to like make this moment happen like this? So yeah, I feel like I've just been craving it. And every time I watch something, I'm just trying to direct it in my head. So it's been great to get out there and get at it again.
I guess for me, it's funny, like, to mention the idea of rust as far as an actor. I think the pandemic has been kind of a little bit of a blanket for me, because I haven't acted in like 8 years, and not like any serious major, like small little 10-minute plays here and there that like I don't have to audition for. I've done, but I haven't like walked into a room, auditioned, acted since this year. And like everyone's like, oh, it's the COVID rust. And I was like, no, yes, it's the COVID rust. I swear it's the COVID rust. Like I had a show that I'm doing and I'm like supposed to be off book tomorrow, and we had to stumble through, and everyone else was off book, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. It didn't go well because I wasn't off book. But Like it's just everyone's like very forgiving, and I appreciate that, and like having COVID as like a little backdrop to get a little extra forgiveness for my rust as a performer.
And we're always in process, though. There's that's I think it's a fun thing. Again, as multi-hyphenates, right? We're talking a lot about acting. It's like that informs our directing, I feel like, and vice versa. And kind of in that vein, what I'm curious, as directors specifically, with having the opportunity to like focus on these kind of microcosms of shows in the shape of monologues, but then also in getting to work with something a little longer in a 10-minute play. How do you guys kind of split brain that? And what are you focusing on with regards to these very, very tiny pieces of theater? And then also a tiny piece of theater, but something longer than 1 minute. What specifically as directors are you aiming for bringing out of the performer in those?
I like to focus on the 3-act story structure. That's always been my go-to with monologues. We have our beginning, our middle, our end. I want to see the story happen. But I also want to make sure that while we're doing the story, that we tell the overarching story of like Act 1, which is the overarching audition process. And like, if someone's nervous, I want them to be nervous until they go up. And then maybe that's part of the monologue, is they're a little speedy, or if someone's really cool, they got the swagger like Rashaad was talking about, I want to see that. I want to see that before, I want to see that after, really making sure that it's all connected. So it's not just a story in the story, but we're getting all the bits.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a toughie of a question. I think for me, when it's like working on like the 10-minute scene bits, it's like, it's more about just like getting those moments that click, that like make everything more relatable, that an audience can just immediately go, oh yeah, I've been there. I know what that's about. And trying to make it as realistic and true as possible, while still being entertaining. And then with like those monologues, it's just mostly about, well, one, you want to make sure that whoever's watching it understands, even if they've never seen this play or watched this movie. But really bringing out whatever quality it is that this actor has, because everyone has, their own take on a way of doing things. But I think there's something also to bringing a bit of yourself into it, so that people get a feel for you. So that's kind of what I've been looking at.
I think for me, it's been fun because we've had to go back to like the basic things that like sometimes get forgotten, like just simple stakes, like what is at stake in this monologue. And my thing for monologues versus the scene is like, yes, I know your monologue is attached to a full play, but unless you are banking that everyone who ever watches this monologue has seen that play, your stakes have to be rooted in what's happening in the minute and a half that you are talking. Like you can't be like, well, in Act 4, this thing happens. I'm like, that's great. I've read the play, but does the next person read the play? They don't know what happens in Act 4. Like you gotta tell them like you were saying, that 3-act structure. It all has to happen in the like your minute monologue. And then for like the 10-minute plays, it's the same thing, but like they have the benefit of like this is the full story. There's nothing beyond that world. So yeah, I think like getting back to those very simple, like what's important, what do you get if you succeed in this moment? What do you get if you fail in this moment? And I like getting back to that and making sure like those are like fresh in your mind, because I think oftentimes when we do monologues and auditions, like we've done them so many times, you kind of just lose sight of that. So that has been the thing I've been focusing on with mine.
Yeah, cool, sweet. It's just so good to talk to directors and actors, because selfishly, as multi-hyphenate, I've said that word so much today. It's fun to see it's interesting to me to see how folks approach the work. And there's always, those universal things, but it's always fun to see how different people approach the craft. So we just really appreciate having you all on board for this. And I can't wait to see what all three of you and Morgan do at the end of March. With that, I think I'd love for us to end on kind of a fun. And this can be either as a director or as an actor. If it somehow blurs together, awesome. And you can either go right, like you were saying, Rashaad, one direction, or we can go this other direction. But what was one of those moments as an actor or director in an audition process where you either felt like I nailed it, or you kind of left the room like, oh.
I think the time that I really didn't nail it was I had to do an a cappella ukulele solo. And I was like doing the solo, we're doing fine, and we reach this one part and my voice goes, just gone. And I'm literally like mouthing words, and then I go, and then I keep going, because I know if anything, I'm going to keep going. You know what? And that was the closest I could to nailing that audition. Was just, it doesn't matter. Keep it rolling.
I have a best/worst audition, mostly because for me it was like horrible work on my part. So that morning I woke up, I had a headache, I was depressed, I didn't want to do anything. As I was leaving, I couldn't like find my sheet music, I had to like go print it off. As I was leaving the house, I dropped my phone and cracked the screen. So I'm in this horrible mood. I'm like dressed in like my grungiest clothes. I just woke up just for this audition. I go in and I'm just like, hi, my name is Kamille. I'm going to be singing this song. And then I just sang it and left. And I booked the gig. And when I was actually in the rehearsal room, they were saying, yeah, I really appreciated how you just came in and just sang it and then left. And because of that, that's why I got it. So that was a really interesting, so I guess no reason to get all nervous all the time. Just go in and do it.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Just own it no matter what, and you get it. I think my best experience in the room was like, it's one of those, like, I was a reader for a show, and I didn't come to audition, they just like needed a reader. And like there was this one actor, and like, like if you guys have been readers, sometimes like my philosophy is like, I'm not trying to impress anyone, but I want to give the person I'm reading with enough that way they can shine. So like I'm not ever fully in the moment, but I'm listening to you and I'm talking to you, that way you can do what you need to do. But there was this one person, and they like, I don't know what they wanted from me, I don't know what I did to them, but like they just like looked me dead in the eyes and they were like, you're gonna act in this scene with me, you're gonna be fully committed to this moment with me, we're gonna be here, it's gonna be real for both of us. And I was like, I guess so. And so like they pushed everything I had as an actor out of me in that scene. And then the director came up to me and was like, do you want to be in the show? And I was like, what? So I booked a gig as a reader because someone forced me to like actually act in the scene. And the director's like, yeah, where was this all day? And I was like, I was just reading for people. And then it was like, well, if you got that in you, like, and the person who made me do all that got cast in the show too. So like I had to thank them at the first like rehearsal, being like, you're the reason I'm here right now. But that was a very fun moment for me.
That's something you put on a resume, like a work resume, and then your like creative resume, just like booked as a reader. What is that story? Oh my gosh. Oh man, that's beautiful. It's a process, isn't it? Oh, I've said that word so many times, but it's true. You know, we're always working, and we're so excited to have all three of you and Morgan as a part of this process, because it helps us just continue to define ourselves as we continue to grow as an ensemble. So thanks for being a part of that journey. And to you, whoever you are watching this video, we hope that you can join us and be a part of the journey as well. We are going to be doing again the process for 2 nights. It's going to be March 24th at 7:30 and March 25th. We'll have a 3 o'clock and a 7:30 showing on March 25th. It's all going to be at Mrs. Murphy and Sons Irish Bistro at 3905 North Lincoln Avenue. We have a tiered ticketing system through our Simple Tix, so be sure to check that link, which should be below this video. It's going to be $10, $15, and $20 tickets. We are also currently running a GoFundMe campaign to reach our $800 budget, like minimum. So please feel free to send us money that way. And at the very least, share that info to anyone who you think could also send some of that tax refund over. And at the very, very least, we hope that you can join us and be a part of the process. Be sure to follow us on social media. I assume you are or will be after watching this video, but we're on Instagram at the Lightbulb Factory. We also got a Facebook and of course the YouTube. And yeah, we hope that you can join us as we continue to roll out the episodic monologue episodes of each of the individual monologues, which again will culminate in that live performance on the 24th and the 25th. So yeah, thanks for sharing a little bit of your time, Kamille, Eliza, and Rashaad, and Morgan, wherever you are. Thanks for sharing your time. We're filming this on a Sunday, and Sundays are our choice. So we just appreciate y'all sharing your time, and we can't wait to see your work. Until then, stay lit.